give us a little bit of background about yourself and your role at Deloitte?
Sure. I operate across the region a little bit, and my background covers a whole lot of markets, mostly life insurance, but across the breadth of financial services and a range of roles. I've been in and out of consulting and corporate roles a few different times, flipped either side, so I think I've got a view from both sides of the table.
So many insurance companies are looking at becoming a lot more customer-centric, and that being a key focus for them. And the ways they're looking at doing that is predominantly through technology and digital innovation. What do you think the impacts of that could be from an actuarial perspective and the future role of actuaries?
There's some really big shifts, and it depends on which market a little bit. Obviously in Australia, part of the question that's come up is conduct, and there's a big agenda around how we look at customers. I think more broadly in other parts of the world and other markets, some of that customer focus is coming from the questions around how do we sustain a relationship so that we have a long-term engagement with the customer and we're meeting their needs over time. And that goes to a core profitability element, that when you're selling a long-term contract and it costs quite a lot of money to write it up front, regardless of the reporting mechanisms that you might use, you actually need to retain the customer for a reasonably long time to get that payback, whether it's distribution costs or underwriting costs or system setup cost. So all of that leads to the question of how do we make sure that we're engaging the customer and making the product relevant through time.
Yeah.
So that change of focus is either conduct or performance, or just, there's more and more pressure to think about the customers and design around them. We've got more technology and tools to operate differently. So once upon a time when we had a more standardised thing for everybody, that was all we could do. But actually we have all the tools and capability and power and knowledge to actually be able to customise much more. And that puts a lot of pressure on the industry, particularly where businesses that have a legacy of systems, processes, people thinking, the pressure is to say, how do we shift that and start thinking more about the customer and using new tools and processes to implement around that. And the reality is you can access data in lots of different ways, and it's not all internal data, and particularly when we start thinking about different ways of pricing, different ways of thinking about the customer, actually external data that we didn't have in the past can be more interesting than the data that we've typically had through the life insurance policies we've written.
And how do you think existing players are placed to make that transformation?
I guess I'd say I've seen both examples. I've seen examples of legacy organisations or incumbents with power, but also the legacies of history actually shift and make change. But I've also seen some that have really struggled with that and therefore had to partner with somebody else or almost set up a separate shop. I don't think there's a right answer, but for the incumbents, the not doing anything and just plodding along doing the same thing is not an option.